Welcome, everyone. This is March 16, 2021. This is a board meeting with the Board of Selectmen. I got to announce everyone's name on the screen. We have Melissa Forg, our town accountant, Selectman David Wonow, Chad Leclerc from the Park Department, Selectman Dave DeRoche, Board of Health member Dave Davinian, Pat Hannon, Board of Health assistant agent, Kathy Silver from the DPW, Mr. James Merritt from our building department, building commissioner, and Miss Julie Hebert, our town administrator. And I think for that, Kathy Mueller looks like she's chiming in. Anybody else that chimes in, you'll have to announce yourself when you chime in, please. Is there a motion to call the meeting to order?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote. Selectman Wonow,
Yes.
Selectman DeRoche,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. We are now in open session. Thank you, gentlemen. I'm going to jump right off, go out of order because we have an appointment, and those folks have other things to be taken care of. We got an individual by the name of Rick Miller, Palmer, Acushnet River Landing, Palmer's Cove Mills, LLC. Mr. Miller is proposing to develop a high-quality townhouses on the parcel of land that he owns, which is located near a portion of the Acushnet River, which has recently been environmentally reclaimed and which is located to the south and east of the mill complex owns and in which he has allowed the local nonprofit Gifts to Give to successfully operate for several years. He goes on to explain, gentlemen, on the next few pages, he's given us a few pictures of the parcel, the whole area over there, in a little rendition of what the townhomes would look like. He's looking to come in front of the Board of Selectmen first, just to get an appetite on where the town would stand through the board's eyes, and then move accordingly from there. I ain't going to go through the whole letter, but it just says we would graciously appreciate your time and anticipated suggestions and honest comments on the proposed project and zoning update change if needed. Mr. Miller, it looks like we have Mr. John Markey here. I think he's the representative from Mr. Miller. I don't see Mr. Miller on the screen. Mr. Markey, do you want to make any comments on Mr. Miller's behalf for the project?
Sure. The reason I'm wearing my mask is that I think he was planning on being down to my office, but he must be running a couple minutes late. Dave Davignon is the engineer who's working on the project. He's also here. So I think I can give you an introduction briefly, and then Mr. Davignon can talk more intelligently because he has the engineering perspective on the project. And he's been working for a longer period of time with Mr. Miller. If it's possible, if it's possible, I could share my screen and then Mr. Davignon could walk through the project quickly and why it is that in theory, or not in theory, in reality, for us to do this project, which we think is good for the town, we would need to have your support and have basically have the project delivered to a warrant for town meeting to make a minor change in the zoning. So if I could, I don't know if you've made me the host or if you allow me to share a screen, I will try to do so. Okay. So I think that I am okay now, and I can turn it over to the smarter person who's the engineer to walk you through this. Dave?
Thank you. For the record, Dave Davignon. I am from Schneider Davignon Leone, based out of Mattapoisett. I'm here representing Rick Miller, who essentially is the owner of the old Titleist factory property. John, if you could go to an overview of the property, that would be helpful.
Is this the overview?
Sure, that works. So what we're looking at is an aerial photograph of the site and surrounding neighborhoods. Mr. Miller owns approximately 15.5 acres, which includes the old factory property. That comprises about 5.3 acres, borders the Acushnet River on the west side, Slocum Street on the north side, Titleist Drive on the east side. Just to the east of that is about a 2.2 acre parcel of the property. It's a self-storage facility that was developed some years ago. That was the old parking lot for the factory. And what's left of that, which would be south of the self-storage facility and southeast, part of that is crosshatched in blue. What's left is about an 8 acre piece, which would take you from the water's edge all the way up to a street called Proto Street. We have been discussing this concept with Henry Young for approximately 8 years, on and off. A lot of the discussion and delays had to do with this bypass road, which we show. That bypass layout was given to me by Henry. That is a road concept, if you will, that would take the trucks off of South Main Street, coming out of the PJ Keaton facility, and empty them onto Slocum Street and then onto New Bedford. That concept has all kinds of problems with it because it crosses through multiple properties. Mr. Miller has been more than willing to donate his portion. And when we laid out the self-storage facility years ago, we left a roadway void, if you will, between the old factory and that facility, with the intent of putting a road through there, and always being open-ended anyway for that happening. The latest rumors that I've heard is that it's probably never going to happen because of the other, at least one other property.
So is the chief available?
Hey, Lisa, if you can put it on mute.
I got it.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Davinian.
Thank you. So this concept, which was developed some 8 years ago, still shows the bypass road that obviously could be enveloped into the development of what you'll see in a few minutes. Mr. Miller also owns a couple of other parcels that might be of interest to the town. North of the factory building, there's a parking lot on the west side of River Street, which borders the river. It's basically abuts the river. It's an abandoned parking lot. It's not used, as well as another parking lot to the northeast of that. I can't read the street, but you can see it blocked out in white bold lines. He has considered donating those to the town if the town had any use, because he has no use for them at this time. So the other interesting thing you might see in this aerial is the Riverview Walk, which has been discussed for some time, which would probably start at the Riverview Park, which is shown in green to the northwest of the photo, and follow the river. There is an easement on Mr. Miller's property along the shoreline for a bike path to be constructed to run around the perimeter of the old factory building. From there, it could be picked up where there's an old gravel road, a new gravel road, I should say, that was built in the cleanup of the river. That red line, it probably is a little off. It more or less follows the shoreline a little bit. It's not that far off. So this shows how that Riverview Park would still wrap around the entire facility heading towards Fairhaven. If you could change screens, John.
What would you like to see?
Why don't you show me the layout? So Mr. Miller's property, it has access to 4 different public ways. One being Hope Street, one being Rock Street, Bitto Street, and Proto Street. This is just an initial preliminary concept, purely conceptual, just pie in the sky, throw it on paper to begin the project. It absolutely will be, I'm sure, tweaked many times over the course of the project. One thing it shows is an access point from Proto Street. We realized that would be very contentious with the dead end neighborhood of Proto Street. That would be something that would not be a part of the project. If anything, it might be a gate there for the fire department to break should we need a secondary emergency entry point. The main entrance under this concept would be from Rock Street. We also realized that there could be, there'll be some needed changes to Rock Street and Bitto Street. As I understand, that's a one-way running east to west, but Bitto Street currently has no homes on it that are serviced by that street. It's wide enough and could be improved so that it becomes a two-way street. And then this plan also shows the bypass road, as you can see, to the southwest of the site. If that never happens, that could also be another entry point for the development. So the acreage we're talking about total is about 8 acres of undeveloped land. Some of it is wetland, some of it is land that could not be developed because of the cleanup. And to the south, near the west towards the river, we're talking about developing approximately 4 acres of the 8 acres. So the density would be about 12 units per acre, more or less. Things not shown in the plan to the west, there's additional land that could be utilized for complete compliance with stormwater requirements by the planning board and DEP. So again, this is just a work in progress. We have a photograph, another picture which shows a concept that Mr. Miller was thinking of. If you could go to that slide, John. So Mr. Miller, I'm not sure where he got this from, but this is what he envisions, 3-story townhouses clustered in 3 or 4 per building, to total up to approximately 50 units total. So it would be several buildings, as you see, on one property. The property would be an association type property maintained by the owners of each of the units. And I'm not sure if there's anything else I can add to the presentation. In order for this to occur, we would need a zoning change. We are in the business commercial district. There are only 2 of these types of district locations in the town of Acushnet. One is this quadrant of the town, which is not only Mr. Miller's property, but it expands south, several other properties. And then the other location that I'm aware of is the old White's farm. A lot of that is business commercial, as we have some businesses constructed over there. So a change in the zoning would only impact those 2 districts. And what we're seeking is a change so that the town would allow multifamily housing units in this district. Currently, there is no multifamily housing throughout the town, with the exception of an over 55 development, which is allowed in a residential district. So the zoning bylaws are lacking when it comes to housing. And given that we're looking at, the T coming down from Boston, we're looking at how do we create other revenues in the town. We feel that this would be a positive tax revenue for the town. So with that, I'll turn it back over to John, unless there are any questions from board members.
Mr. Davinian, Dave DeRoche. I missed, what were the 2 zoning areas that would be affected by a bylaw change again?
The area that you're looking at now, which is not only Mr. Miller's facility, but properties to the south. So I think there are 3 other additional properties to the south of this.
And,
Well,
and that's considered business district right now?
It's business commercial district.
Business commercial, okay.
And the other business commercial district that I'm aware of, and I think Mr. Merritt's online, he could correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's out by White's Farm Dairy. There's a chunk of land as well that's business commercial out there.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's,
so a bylaw change would affect those 2 areas.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
that is correct, Mr. Davinian. The other business commercial district is about 7 or 8 more lots wrapped around the backside of the dairy. What's known as White's Farm Dairy off of Middle Road, connects off of Nice Lane, and the road was supposed to be put in but was never developed. But right through there between Arujo Brothers and J&R Plastics, there's a cutout on Nice Lane for a road to be put in if it were to be developed into more lots for access, wrapping back around to that building where the mini driving range was. So back to Mr. Miller's proposal. I think there's a lot I know this was something, Mr. Davinian, you had mentioned that was thrown on paper quite some time ago, and I know that the bypass road is probably is a pipe dream based on some of the owners of property out towards the south. So, but I would say this, I mean, developing that bypass road as far as Mr. Miller's concerned to the point of where the housing ends on the map. I mean, you could take that little loop that comes around to the other housing lots and connect that right into the bypass road, as well as the furthest point south, that road over there to serve those homes and connect that to a bypass road. And you'd have a complete in and out for everybody. Maybe not even going over into that neighborhood of Biddle Street and connecting that in. That might be an option for Mr. Miller as well, right?
Sure, all options are on the table.
I
Very
mean,
open as to how we do it.
it looks pretty easy, based on his design that he has here. If he just developed that bypass road into his own property and dead end it right there, you could take that little looper, it goes down like that road goes over to Biddle Street. You could just connect that right into bypass, and the furthest one south you got here, connect that to the little bypass, and you have easy access in and out to accommodate this kind of situation. So the question that I have, I don't know if Mr. Maki or Mr. Davin, you want to answer it on behalf of Mr. Miller. It's kind of in line with what they would call active adult communities. Would this be something that we would be looking for, either an age restricted community or an age targeted community development, or is it just wide open to anybody?
So just so that you know, John Markey speaking again. Mr. Miller has now joined me. He is open to potentially having some kind of an active adult community. Personally, we are still at the stage where we're simply trying to find out, you know, before he starts to invest money in engineering and in other things, whether the town would have an appetite that he would even be permitted to do it with zoning. So I think the suggestion you had about the access on the bypass road is a good one. The possibility of having some age restrictions, I think, is something he's not averse to entirely. But until we know whether it's a project we can do, he's got to then look at the marketplace and see whether it's feasible or not. So the bottom line political answer is yes, we'll consider it. At this stage, it's early to commit to anything.
You're breaking up, Mr. Maki.
We know whether we can do the project.
Yeah, you broke up through some of that comment. I just asked the question.
I'm sorry.
I just asked the question because I think, you know, it's something that I know that I've spoken to a number of people over the years, and I think that it's something that our community, as Mr. Davinian has mentioned, something our community is really missing out on is that, you know, age restricted communities where you're not getting inundated. If you just did it without an age, like 55 and older, that would be an age restricted community. If you did it on age targeted communities, it's generally 55 and older, but not as explicitly restricted to 55 and older. So there's a few different definitions we can use. And I've talked to a number of people over my time in this office, and it's kind of embarrassing that we don't have something to accommodate, you know, 55 and older housing in the town. So I like the project. I really like the looks of the project and the comments that have been made. I'm supportive. I mean, with all things being given, you know, making sure that we adhere to our town bylaws and those of the Commonwealth, of course, our stormwater bylaw and things of that nature, and being environmentally friendly in this development. I'm surely in favor of something that would be, you know, a 55 and older community. But if that's something that Mr. Miller decides that, hey, I just want to leave it wide open to sell, I mean, it does add a little bit of concern with public safety being involved now, school systems with kids going to the school system and things of that nature. So, you know, if you ask me today, at first time looking at this, I've had a little bit of discussion offline. If you ask me about, you know, if it was something age restricted, 55 and older communities, I'm 100% on board as long as we develop the bylaws accordingly.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Gasper. I think at the end of the day, that wouldn't be allowed in this district. Either way, we need to have a zoning change. And so I think because the 55 and over, as I understand it from Mr. Davinion's comments earlier, is only allowed in the residential district. So some zoning change needs to be made, and we're open to dialogue with a representative of the select board and or town council to figure out how a warrant could be crafted that would allow for it. I also note that any zoning change that we would talk about, we understand it would require a special permit. So to the extent that you would say, hey, we would allow multifamily units with preference given for over 55, as you described.
You're breaking up, Mr. Mackey.
Any kind of dialogue, as long as we can get a zoning.
You're totally.
Sorry about that. So, yep.
We didn't really hear a lot of what you said. I get the gist of it though, Mr. Mackey. You know, I just, you start opening up.
Bottom line is, next step is for us to talk with a representative from your group and or town council as to what you want. Because we know that if we want to invest, we need to have a zoning change in either regard, because right now, even an over 55 wouldn't be allowed there. So we're open to having somebody speak with us about how you might want a warrant to be done that would allow for either type of project.
Sure.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Wona.
Yeah, thank you. And I echo Mr. Gasper's comments about, the concept of the project. We have Mr. Merritt and Mr. Hannon. Mr. Merritt is our building inspector and zoning officer, and Pat Hannon, who is also serving as our interim special projects manager. And I would urge, or I would suggest that we ask Mr. Hannon and Mr. Merritt to meet with the proponents, again, not an endorsement per se, but to at least extend the expertise of their office to see what the possibilities look like. I think what I'm most encouraged about is staying away from Proto Street. That is a dead end. And I can understand the sensitivities of that. And it looks like there would be plenty of access in and out where you wouldn't have to disturb that neighborhood. And so that would be my advice there. But I think in concept, I've seen enough that this project warrants some time and energy with our team and Mr. Miller's team to see what the possibilities are. I'm in favor of the 55 and over target population, because I just think that just opens up opportunities for folks who've lived in Acushnet their whole life, want to stay in Acushnet, and then that allows those homes to circulate to people who want to stay in Acushnet. I just think that's a great possibility. And if we can get this right, do it the right way, we might be able to look at other targeted areas in town that might warrant something like this. Again, we don't want to go crazy, but I think there's opportunity here to really make an impact for the community. And the one thing we always talk about, right, is that we need to increase our tax base. And if we can do it with a project like this, it's not going to bring in heavy industrial. I think that would be a win-win for the town, where we can maintain our quality of life, but also give people an opportunity to stay here, over the long haul. So that would be my suggestion, is to allow our team to work with the developer on what a game plan, on what something would look like, and what's the best path forward.
Yeah.
Again, with no promises, at the end of the day.
I agree. Selectman DeRoche, do you have any comments, questions, concerns?
In theory, I'm okay with multifamily housing being developed in the town of Acushnet. We talked about putting together a team. I can come up with many comments and questions to be discussed and explored, and see how we can move this project forward. So with this explanation that I've heard today, in theory, I'm okay with moving ahead with the team and discussing this further.
Mr. Davinian, Mr. DeRoche just used a word that I'm not so sure. I know townhomes are in they call it like 40R and things of that nature. This is more of a townhome. He used the words multi-families. And I know that we allow up to 2-family homes, and there was in the old days built 3-family homes. in the past, but right now I think we're only allowed duplexes and 2-family homes. We wouldn't be trying to do areas of multi-family homes. These are single-family town homes, correct? So would we be doing something based around that community, residential community town homes? Or would we be doing something more open and vague, in your opinion?
In my opinion, I'll defer to Rick, but my understanding is it'd be very specific, townhouse style, individually owned units.
Right,
But they would be built, when you say multifamily, you're talking about more than one unit in a building.
yeah,
So what you see in that photograph would be 3 units or 4 units within one building.
sure. I just didn't want, some of our bylaws, they say multifamily, then it's misconstrued saying I can build a 3-decker now.
Yeah, we're not
anywhere-
talking about
anywhere-
apartment buildings. We're not talking about, you can be very specific about how you want it worded.
Yeah, I would just be careful of that. I mean, Selectman Wona hit on it along with my comments, pretty much identical, where we're advocating for 55 and older townhomes and communities like this that are really nice looking, can fit into what we already have, and not creating an inner city within a town, right?
Correct.
Okay, awesome. I'll entertain a motion for Mr. Merritt and Mr. Pat Hannon to work with Mr. Miller's team, attorneys, whoever it may be, to try to figure out the best way forward for us to review in a future meeting.
You're
I'm
on
at-
mute, Dave.
Dave, you're on mute.
I'll make that motion. Sorry about that.
Is
I'll
there a
second.
roll call vote? Mr. Wona,
Yes.
Mr. DeRoche,
Yes.
and I am a yes. Thank you, Mr. Markey. Thank you, Mr. Miller and Mr. Davinian for coming in with this proposal. We look forward to working with you in the near future.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you very
All
much.
right, thank you.
All right. Gentlemen, moving on, we got budgets to discuss. We'll jump right into budgets. Mr. Merritt, we'll take Chad. Chad, you should be pretty quick. I talked to you on your budgets. You seem to be okay outside of whatever we did for the cost of living increase, but I see you up on the screen, so I'll turn it over to you if you have any comments on your budget, Park, and recreation.
No, the regular line items are fine. It was all salary, really. I did put in a request prior to our communication for an increase for my park supervisor, Mike Ashley, for an increase to 17 an hour. I know it got brought to my attention just yesterday. So I thought it may have been approved prior to your text. In our conversation, so that would be the only change. But I think even with that, I can still try to keep the salary under budget with cost of living and that increase if that's approved, and I should be fine otherwise. It's hard for me to warrant asking for anything else under the circumstances of the last year and year at the park. It's been all over the place. So until we have a normal year, I'm fine with leaving the budget as is. I don't have any other requests.
Gentlemen, questions, comments, concerns from Mr. Leclerc?
No, just one other, somewhat off topic, but it impacts the park. It's more of a question to Julie. We have CARES funding. I just would want to know how much money we have left, but 2, with the park being a high volume place, especially in the summer with baseball, I don't know if there's an opportunity to help with some of the social distancing and provide seating in certain areas. And that's something, if the park needed, or, sanitation, stations or whatever that may be. I don't know if we could make the case for that, but if we have CARES Act money available, maybe, the park board could put together a small budget of what they would like to see in the way of improvements. And if we can utilize funding for that, I think that would be really helpful to that facility.
Yeah, so Chad and we've been communicating back and forth. We've been doing it for far too long. Chad went to town meeting several years back, got an article. Chad, I think it was like 10 grand?
Yeah.
to do the stone house behind the Veterans Memorial. The roof is dilapidated. And then we wanted to build we had some ideas of building an overhang off of that rooftop stone building with some picnic tables underneath it there, Selectmen won't. And we have, Old Colony got jammed up and they had a bunch of projects that were already on the queue. And then COVID-19 came. So Chad spoke to a local business, the DeRoche brothers. They've been committing a lot of their time and volunteer time to the town of Acushnet over the years, decades. In fact, volunteering their services whenever they can to help out the town. Well, they're doing it again. They will be paid for their work, but Mr. Leclerc's got $10,000 to do the rooftop and then carry it off into the playground area so that families in the summertime in the hot weather, they can be underneath it there. So I think we could probably use, we did use some money out at Council on Aging to build an outdoor area for them. I'm sure that if we run short on those funds in that article and we need $1,000 or a couple $1,000, we could definitely work with Ms. Hebert and accommodate in that situation there through CARES Act.
Yeah, that would be great. I mean, we did a pretty good job last year of separating and making some seating for the families, so that during the games they can separate, and just the kids we see a lot of kids in the park now because of school. They're in and out of the park during the daytime. So yeah, if we had some additional locations within the ball field areas and around the basketball courts, that would be helpful. I think the playground is going to be covered with the pavilion for sure. Once that's finished, I think that'll be great. We have picnic tables that we were able to order. We just have to put them together. So the park department has decided that at some point we'll get together and use our time to build those benches and stuff and the picnic tables that we purchased. So the playground will look pretty nice for the most part until we can really get some funding down the road to maybe redo the whole thing. But
excellent.
Yeah.
All right.
Perfect.
No other questions from Mr. Leclerc, gentlemen?
All set.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for your time and all the work from your crew over there at Pole Park. We appreciate it.
My pleasure. Have a great day. Thank you, guys.
You too, sir.
Chad.
Is there a motion to approve the park and recreation budgets outside of whatever we decide cost of living? And Julie will plink that in like she's going to do with the other budgets. Roll call vote. Mr. Wona,
Yes.
Mr. DeRoche,
Yes.
and I'm a yes.
Mr. Chair, can I just ask for clarification? Are we good with the supervisor increase? Chad, did you say it was $17 an hour?
Yeah, it was from 1650 to 17.
Okay. So that would be the change for that person out, and then the others would be COLA. Is that what we're agreeing to? For the board, or are you looking to just put him at the COLA as well?
Chad?
Oh, me, myself?
No, she just asked you a question. She's talking about these. You got a supervisor's position, obviously, in here that y'all looking to change on tab 26. So what line item is that, Chad? It says, is it on the park department salary permanent position, the $21,000?
Yes.
And that you're saying is a regular $16.50 an hour and you want to just bump it to 17?
Right.
Well, it's not that far, Ms. Hebert, that's not that far off from what we've been discussing as a board, so.
I just wanted to make sure, because I know, like you said, there was a PAF that had come through, so
Yeah,
wanted to make sure it was clarified.
it's a 25 cents an hour difference. If I have to disclose that on public TV, I will. I think we can handle it.
Thank you, just making sure.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks, Chad. Building department, Jim Merritt's here. We'll discuss with Mr. Merritt right now. Mr. Merritt, welcome.
Welcome, Mr. Chairman. How are you?
Hanging in there. So we got your building department budget. It's under, gentlemen, that's under tab 15. If you go to his budget,
I have both tabs, tab 15 and tab 3.
yeah, that's fine. That's fine. We're gonna work off the building department's budget right now, and I believe there's one other one here. I think it's town buildings. We'll get to that one next, Jim. So the only question that I have is, on the salaries temporary, I don't know, what is that all about, salaries temporary? It's a small amount of money, but what is that?
That's really to cover the costs of when I'm not here and my clerk needs to work a couple extra hours and we need to cover the cost of having another inspector come in and do the inspections for me.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
We've generally returned almost all of that every year.
Yeah, that's fine, Jim. I just seen it and I didn't know what that would be all about, but thank you for that clarification. And then you have a real substantial jump, 2,400% in due subscription and membership, all the way from 500 to 12,500. I'm hoping that's a clerical error, but
That's definitely a clerical error.
That's the increase due to the online permitting software.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
Hmm.
Yeah, there are two parts to that, Mr. Chairman. One, we have a commitment for the annual renewal of the permit software. In order for our tablets to work, we need to have some type of cell data plan so that they'll access all the inspections out in the field.
okay, Julie, can we do something different with that line item? That really shouldn't go on the dues. I don't know, dues, subscription and membership. They kind of,
Well, we put it there because it's an annual subscription for the permitting software, but we can break it out if you'd like it on a different line.
I think making a line item that would say permit software or something like that, just for better clarification for town meeting of, anybody else from the outside looking in.
I can do that.
You want to do that? All right. Gentlemen, you good with Mr. Merritt's building department budget?
I am, but I would just, obviously this year might not be the year to do it, Jim, just because of the fiscal uncertainty of things, but just one observation. We get a lot of bang for our buck with in-house work that we do, and I know it might be tough to do a, full-time employees, but maybe put some thought, or at least I'd like for the board to consider long range, providing summer job opportunities for students at Old Colony who are in the trades that could, work for us for the summer, small period of time, but with like specific projects, whether it's, painting or we've got a lot going on, and I think it's a great investment and great bang for our buck. I know it's hard to, difficult to do right now midstream, but just something to think about long-term, what we can, it's a win-win for everybody, for a small amount of money, put a few people to work and we can get a lot of return on our investment.
Yeah, so when we get to town buildings, I'll continue that conversation, Mr. Warner. We'll have that conversation with Mr. Merritt. Is there a motion to approve the building department's budget as presented? So roll call vote, Selectman Warner? You're on mute, Dave.
Sorry, I keep going on and off mute. Yes, I'm a yes.
Selectman DeRoche?
Yes.
And I'm a yes.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Mr. Merritt, we only have, we're going to your town buildings right now, and I believe that we will be, well, you can stay on. I don't know if there's anything in the selectmen's budget, Mr. Merritt. You've been kind of helping out with a lot of these things, so if you just stay on. Town buildings, Dave, to go back to yours on town buildings, I know Jim Merritt's budget is what it is, but when we did the town buildings, it was you and I some time ago that we took those Old Colony students because of the workload and all the projects that we had to task, and we just couldn't keep up with what we were doing. You were on the board with me at that time. We made the 2 Old Colony students full-time employees for a window of time that we see fit, or as providing as long as funding was available. And if you look in the town buildings, salaries, maintenance, that's $87,000 for those 2 individuals. And then Mr. Merritt also has increased. I think it's salaries temporary. We got $12,000, and that's kind of what we did on that shift. Is we brought in a couple of young adults, kids to cut lawns and things of that nature, so that we could free up Miguel and Tyler, the Old Colony students that we hired full time, to stay on the projects, you know, building projects, the painting things and things of that nature. So we've kind of done that.
Okay.
You know, that concept we did, I know it's been a little while, Selectman Wona, but we did do that. We made these 2 Old Colony students permanent full-time employees for that very reason, is to bang out that work and help Mr. Merritt. And we even had another piece of the staff that we unfortunately had to let go at some point in the past, but neither here or there. That's where we're at now. And
Right.
Jim, you can
Yeah.
come in. You can
I
come.
was just thinking along the lines of, you know, summer jobs for Acushnet residents doing work for the town, and if it falls under that scope, but, you know, putting essentially a program in place that has some specific, you know, specifications, encourage people to apply. It's something that, you know, you can work with the Old Colony School District again for summer jobs. It, you know, has a finite period of time from June to, you know, mid-July or end July, and then move on. So that's all. But I love where we're going.
Yeah, if I may, Mr. Chairman, I mean, one of the things that we have as far as salaries maintenance is for the 2 young men that we did hire a number of years ago. The 3rd gentleman that we let go, if you noticed back in 2018, we were at 114,000 with him. We're actually doing more work with the 2 young men because they work so hard, just at around $87,000. We did kind of help that along with the salaries temporary budget. And that program was originally designed to get the DPW off the responsibility of having to ride on a lawnmower all summer. We do have 16 buildings whose properties we maintain and cut. The young men that we have hired have done an excellent job, and we've been complimented years and years after doing that. I've added, you know, I've kind of bumped up that recommendation to 13,000 only because, you know, what we used to have as a beautification committee is no longer. They've dissolved. It was a bunch of some of the elderly women in town who do that work. They've decided they no longer can handle that. We've taken on that responsibility as well. And I have a professional gardener who comes in to help maintain the gardens that we have and the plantings that we put around the outside perimeter. So that's the increase that we have there. The only other increase that I have in tab 3 really is to increase the postage and supplies, which really has nothing to do with my budget or my building department. It has more to do town-wide. And the reason I've added that increase really is because of it. We're already at 24,000 this year, which means we're spending about $2,500 a month. A lot of that has to do with the virus. I don't know how that will change because of the way programs have changed, the way staff has taken to make changes in the way they do business. But again, that's an item that if it's not spent, it just goes back to free cash. So those are the 2 items that we have. And I would say that, you know, I think with the responsibilities that we have, and this past year, there was some additional funding that with permission from Julie, we allowed some of the younger men to work a little bit longer through the season. Because of CARES, we were able to put up the pergola on top of the library deck, and we built the pavilion behind the COA. Those projects required a little bit more than just 2 men. So we temporarily pulled them off lawns and allowed them to work to get those structures up.
Sure. I understand. Gentlemen, any questions, comments, concerns with town buildings budget?
I'm all set.
Is there a motion to approve town buildings budget?
So moved.
I'll
Mrs.
second.
Roll call vote, Mr. Wona,
Yes.
Mr. DeRoche,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. I probably should have opened up when we started budget discussions. I know it's tough and the finance committee's already looked at some budgets, and I'll get to that in a minute, but you know, they're making some generic cuts within budgets. One of them that we haven't approved yet, we will be looking at it today, just because I think the finance committee's smart enough to know that our budget deficit is ballooning. So they know in preparation of that ballooning of the budget deficit that cuts will be made. So with that said, you know, we can make these recommendations to And that's all Finance Committee really does, is make recommendations. Ultimately, if there's drastic cuts that would need to be made, those budgets would have to come back to the Board of Selectmen, as have been in the past, for us to decide where those drastic cuts would have to come from to decrease that budget deficit. So I know they made some minor changes in budgets, and the department head has agreed to those minor changes, but they have a significant task at hand with the budget deficit. We're no longer looking at 150 roughly. When we started budgets presentations with Ms. Hebert and Ms. Melissa Forg, our town accountant, we were talking $125,000, $150,000 budget deficit. And we are now well over $500,000 in budget deficits. And we have not reviewed police, fire, or EMS, our three major budgets. So, and or decided on contract obligations, what the cost of living is going to be. So, I'm looking at, I've kind of gone ahead and looked forward a little bit. And, gentlemen, we were thinking $150,000 budget deficit, and we're more near $750,000 budget deficit. So just to keep that in mind, that we are going through this as best we can, understanding department head needs. But I think there's going to come a time where FinCom is going to have to tell not only the Board of Selectmen, but the school department, we need cuts. And we'll have to figure that out with Ms. Hebert, the town administrator, and town accountant as that time comes. But I just wanted to give you guys that heads up. Ms. Hebert and I have been discussing budget deficits since we started rolling on, and they are ballooning. So if there's concern there, that's all. I just want to add that as far as our budget discussions today go, so everybody understands that just because we're approving things doesn't mean we might not be at the table reviewing budgets again to close that gap. Merrill Lee, I don't see Merrill Lee, so we're going to hold the conservation because I have significant questions on that. Gentlemen, Finance Committee, Soil Board, Technology Budget. You guys want to go to, is Chris Oliver, anybody from Technology going to be with us? I mean,
No.
I'm sorry. Unfortunately, Chris couldn't be here due to kind of some COVID stuff, whatever, but, and Marilee had a previous engagement, so that's why she's not here.
Yeah, well, we'll hold that one. I guess for the sake of the technology budget, I had some questions wrapped around how much we're spending on the system administrator, given the fact that breaking it down into an hourly wage based on what it is, there's some kind of contract that Mr. Noble made in the past. Ms. Hebert's alluded to that, based on that hourly wage. That equates to like 463 hours a year working on the town's behalf. I just wanted some justification for that amount of money, plus the assistance in there. It comes out to a lot more than that. So, gentlemen, it's been what it is. Is there an appetite to approve the technology budget as presented? The salary increase is there. Unfortunately, Mr. Noble, I guess, made an agreement with the school department where whatever his salary increase is from the school department, he automatically receives out of taxation on a technology budget. I was unaware of that, but supposedly that contract is out there floating around, and doesn't make much sense to correlate what we're doing here from the town's perspective to his increase over there at the school department. So just I got questions and concerns on technology, but if you guys feel like you want to approve the budget, I'm okay with that as well.
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
Roll call vote. Mr. Wona,
Yes.
Mr. DeRoche,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Okay. Animal control, gentlemen, the only thing I'll comment on, and I already did, is the FinCom took our budget, I think it was last Wednesday night, and there was a little small cut in our budget. They asked if it was be okay because they actually see on Finance Committee expenditures year to date, and they questioned the amount of money. I think it was $1,000 in the boarding or something like that, and she's only expended like $250 out of the line item year to date. So they asked if they could lower it to $500. So they got $500 out of the animal controls budget. No big deal. Mrs. Tomlinson agreed to the cut. Is there a motion to approve animal control?
So moved.
I'll second.
Roll call vote, Mr. Wona,
Yes.
Mr. DeRoche.
Yes.
EMA, gentlemen, it's a level funded budget. I spoke with Mr. Bergeron. He's fine with the level funded budget. He thanked us very much for approving the CARES Act funding for his equipment. Is there a motion to approve EMA as presented? Mr. Wona, roll call vote.
So moved. Yes, I'm a yes.
Mr. DeRoche.
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Finance Committee, Ms. Hebert, I think the last time the board talked about Finance Committee, Zoning Board of Appeals, we said just talk with the folks over there, make sure they were okay with their budgets. Finance Committee, good with their budget?
They are.
Gentlemen, is there a motion to approve the FinCom budget?
Yes, so moved.
Second.
Roll call vote, Selectman Warner,
Yes.
Mr. DeRoche,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Forestry, gentlemen, forestry went up a bit. The tree warden doesn't have enough money in his account to be cutting all these diseased trees on the sides of the roads. It's only on town property. Julie, you got the number right in front of you?
Yeah, it went from $9,000 to $14,000 for tree.
$5,000. Trees don't come down for free unless the wind blows them down, gentlemen. It's only $5,000. If the tree is, I'll say something to the degree of a tree's better than 40 feet in height, it costs over $1,000 per tree to take it down. Are we okay with the increase in $5,000 for the forestry budget?
I am yes.
Yes.
Roll call vote, Selectman Wona,
Yes.
Mr. DeRoche,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Gentlemen, the soil board budget is in there as well. I talked to Ms. Hebert. For now, we're gonna leave the soil board budget in there, even though there is some talk with town council and members of our board of perhaps changing the soil board over to the Board of Selectmen. It's level funded, right, Ms. Hebert?
It is.
Is there a motion to approve the soil board as presented? So
So moved.
I'll second.
roll call vote, Mr. Wona,
Yes.
Mr. DeRoche,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Jim, I see you hanging out there still. Do you, Selectmen's budget, you want me to do that and you can do something? Selectmen's budget. Let's go to Selectmen's budget. Tab number 3, gentlemen. There's a bunch of tab number 3s in there.
I don't think Jim's needed for the selectmen's budget.
No, I don't think there's anything there. I think it's just town buildings that he changed some things around on supplies and things of that nature. I think we're good. There's a small increase. Ms. Hebert, the reason why I'm bringing back we're bringing back selectmen's, gentlemen, I think it was just the change of the way the budget formation is made up, special projects manager. Ms. Hebert's taken that out of the budget, and last week, we opted to go with 5.5 additional hours for the part-time clerical position. And she's changed that to part-time assistant grant administrator. If the board's okay with the change in description of responsibilities within the budget, that's all that's here for. Nothing's changed dollar-wise.
And so we pulled the, before the amount for both assistants were in one line item. So now we've clarified one line item for the full-time administrative assistant, and then the part-time is separate, and the special projects manager has been zeroed out.
Are you guys okay with that?
Yes. Mhm.
Okay. Well, we'll just go through the motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote, Selectman Wona,
Yes.
Mr. DeRoche,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Dave, Mr. Wona, do you still need to be dismissed at 1 o'clock for?
I do. I have to step out for at 1 o'clock for a work-related appointment. I'll try to get back on. I
Okay.
apologize for that.
Let me just jump to one other budget Selectman won't on. The rest of them are pretty easy peasy, not much that we can do about it. And that will be the treasurer collector's position, because she's got an added position. I'd like to have you for your comments. Treasurer collector's tab 6, gentlemen. The treasurer collector has added It was a payroll administration, then it swapped up, and after having some discussion with the treasurer collector, with Miss Hebert, they decided to opt in. We used to have two full-time employees as clerks. We have one. Several years back, we changed it to one. And we lived with that one position as a clerk. And they're looking to not bring back a full-time clerk in the treasurer collector's budget, but a 19.5-hour position back in as a clerk for the treasurer collector's office. Is Kathy still with us? Catherine Mueller?
Yeah.
Is she?
Yeah, I'm just trying to get some help for Karen. So I know that, these are still trying times, but I'd like to get a part-time person in there to help her out. It's an extremely busy office.
Gentlemen, do you have any concerns about adding back into the treasurer collector's position a 19.5-hour clerk's position?
No, I don't. I know we didn't fill the spot when the last person left.
Yeah, that was over some payroll things, and there's a bunch of discussion behind the scenes on that, Mr. DeRoche, about the payroll clerk and things of that nature that we had, and that was kind of a help out, but neither here or there. We're past that. We have a payroll system now that's supposed to be, that was to eliminate that job, as we went to that HOPPA system to say that we don't need it because we're digitizing payroll, and then that kind of turned into a little bit of a swampy mess with payroll, but neither here or there. The treasurer collector's requesting some additional help in her office. It's 19.5 hours. We used to have 2 full-time positions in that office. Again, it depends on what happens with FinCom, right? We need to start cutting budgets and money out of budgets. I would have to say that those cuts would probably come with full-time or new positions rather than attacking other positions and things of the like. So I think if there's going to be some hard decisions going to be made by the Board of Selectmen, we would have to first go after any newly created positions or added hours to positions and start reducing from that scope of work first.
Yeah, I'm on board, gentlemen.
Mr. DeRoche, you fine?
Yes. Mhm.
I mean, right now, we're doing what we have to do to support our staff and get them to where they need to be, and they can be comfortable and make sure business is taken care of. Motion to approve the treasurer collector's budget as presented. Mr. Wona?
Yes.
Call vote. Mr. DeRoche?
Yes.
And I'm a yes.
Thank you, John.
Mr. Wona, before you go, if
Yeah.
I could, we got a couple of minutes.
Sure.
I'm gonna jump out. We got a couple of budgets left to do. I'm fine with going back to those later on. We can do those. There's not much going on, Mr. Wona. You won't miss anything. It's just insurance, pensions, and the town accountants level funded. And that's pretty much all we have left to do on that. But I want to jump to the reopening of town hall buildings while I have Selectman Wona and resume, jump to old business, reopening of lobby hours for town buildings and resume in-person meetings. What say you, Mr. Wona, on reopening lobby hours? I think we're all ready to go. Again, all the safeguards have been in place for 9-10 months. Mr. Merritt and his team have done all of that. We're ready to go. Mask, I would just say to the public and to the board, I still have that same recommendation as is everywhere else in the public, that masks are required if you're going to be inside the buildings.
I agree. And I think, we've always tried to run parallel tracks with the school department and with our teachers and the school department going back to essentially to a full-time situation. I think we need to be on that same path, and we've got the provisions in place, but like with anything, we'll monitor it and adjust if we have to. But I'm hopeful and thankful for all the employees for all their work and serving the public. And so I'm in support of that, Mr. Chairman.
So reopening lobby hours, what do we want to do? Do we want to stick with what we did before, gentlemen, 10 to 2, or just go back to as Mr. Wona is saying, schools back to reopening full-time, we open up full-time?
The school system has been in a hybrid situation. We could go 10 to 2 for a period of time, wait for the weather to get a little bit better where we start opening the windows and things of that nature. And then, target say April or, first week of April to be on a full-time full-time basis. But perhaps, the easing into it from a 10 to 2 to start off, and then with a target of full-time when the weather breaks, first week of April, I think would be fair.
Selectman DeRoche, comments?
I'm okay with that.
What do we, so, Mr. Wona, I'm sorry, I'm just a bit confused. We said we go maybe open up full-time April 1st, or do you want to just, and then we said kind of coincide with the school department? Are we doing reopening Monday morning, this Monday morning, whatever date that may be, and Julie could give it to us and say 10 to 12 for the next 2 or 3 weeks of March, and then April 1st, full.
That would be my suggestion, right? Would be 10 to 2, 10 to 12, or 10 to 1, whatever that is. You guys work that out. And then with the expectations that we'll be open full-time at the beginning of April, whenever that, when that takes place. Whether it's the
So
Monday of that week or whatever.
starting next Monday, we reopen town hall from 10 to 2. Is that good?
Yes.
Yep.
Mr. DeRoche, you fine with starting next Monday, open town hall lobby hours 10 to 2?
Yep.
And then April 1st,
April 5th?
April
April
5th, that's 2 weeks. Yeah.
April 5th, Mr. DeRoche, you looking at a calendar, I see?
Yep. April 5th is a Monday.
April 5th, we go back 8 to 4, open full-time.
Right. Sounds like a
that's
plan.
Unless something detrimental changes, gentlemen, I'm with that. Is there a motion to approve?
So move.
I'm second.
All those in favor, roll call vote. Mr. Wona,
Yes.
Mr. DeRoche.
Aye. Yes.
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 Ms. Hebert, can you let the employees know Monday, 10 to 12, reopen, kind of what we did prior to the spike in the
10 to
holiday
2.
season?
10 to 2.
10 to 2, and then we
Right.
go, April 5th, we'll, pending any unknown changes with the pandemic, we'll reopen full-time.
I'll let everyone know. Thank you.
Town accountant, we're gonna go back to the budget. Town accountant's budget. Melissa, you're here. I'm pretty sure your budget is level funded. Is that correct?
Correct.
Do you have any comments on your budget, Ms. Fogg?
No, I mean, there's just salary decreases due to new positions, and there's just a slight increase on Gatsby due to in the previous, we're using an article to help with that, and that's done now, so we just have to increase that a little bit. That's nothing we can control, unfortunately.
Town accountant, Gatsby.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's $1,500, but we changed that. What is it, Julie? Every like 3 years, there's a bigger year that you have to get that appropriation for it.
So yeah, every other year it goes from like around $1,500 to $2,000. And then the next year it'll be like $11,000. So to kind of even out between the years, we kind of level funded every year instead of having a low year and then a high year. So we did have to increase it slightly. As Melissa said, we had an article to help offset the costs in the past, and that article's been used completely. So
Can I just ask a question while we're on it real quick? Senior clerk, why did we, is that a step increase in the contract?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Gentlemen, any questions, concerns, comments for the town accountant's budget?
Nope. I'm okay with it.
Is there a motion to approve the town accountant's budget?
So moved.
I think Mr. Warner had to step up.
I'll second it.
Yes, I'm a yes, sorry.
Oh, roll call.
I'll stay on, but I'm gonna be on mute. I just gotta step out for a few minutes.
Roll call vote, Mr. Warner.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. DeRoche,
Yes.
and I'm a yes.
Thank you.
Julie, insurance and pensions, the last two that we need to do, because we're not doing conservation. She can come in on that next meeting with some concerns about that one.
Yep.
So insurance is tab 29.
So essentially, I still don't have a number for our workers' comp, property and casualty. We have a 15% plugged in. So when I get that final number, I'm sure if anything, if it changes, I believe it would be a decrease. So as soon as that changes, I'll let you know. But otherwise, we level funded for now the unemployment insurance. That's kind of been up in the air. There's been a lot of fraudulent claims. I'm sure if Kathy's still on, she can explain. That's been all over the place. But we had increased it from previous years. We had budgeted 30,000 in the past, and we bumped it up to 50 last year. So we're level funding that for now. And for the health insurance, we just rounded up slightly. Overall, we had a level fund for our premium. It was a 0% increase, but due to the number of people taking the insurance, we did up it about $20,000. So that's our insurance. And again, the only change that I think you'll see coming forward would be the property and casualty workers' comp insurance. Once we get that figure, if anything, it would be lowered. 15% is a high.
You have a pretty, I wanted to talk about insurance, Julie, just for the simple fact that liability insurance increased by $27,000. That's pretty significant increase.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
it went up.
Yeah, and I got a comment on that, Mr. Chairman.
Technically, liability insurance is escalated pretty significantly from fiscal year 18 actual 160, 19 actual 152 roughly, fiscal year 2020 actual 147. Last year was voted, I don't know where we're at year to date, 180, and now we're at 207. Insurance is, you know, we're spending $1.9 million. And I understand people's insurance to 60-40 split, but liability insurance, that line item's just gone haywire. What's going on with that line item? You know, you narrowed that down?
Let me pull up Munis now to see. I'm not sure what the year-to-date is looking like for fiscal 21. But these line items are also offset by the enterprise funds. So what'll happen is, you know, we start off with a number, and then at the end of the year, the insurance company will give a breakout for how much we backcharge to water, sewer, and golf. And we'll go through and do those updates on the system. So it's, you know, sometimes it's hard to get a good estimate because there's also a breakout between those departments. And I think we've seen, I know with golf, they had some additional charges for things that weren't on the insurance policy before. So let me see if I can pull up. I don't know if you have
it's okay, Julie. I mean, we don't need to get that in depth with it. If you can provide, I don't know if, I think Selectman DeRoche and Mr. Wonas, you got to do what he's got to do for right now. But I've been involved in the numbers for a long time, and it's just that thing's all over the map. I'd like to see what is causing that massive fluctuation. That's all.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. DeRoche.
I mean, my only comment to Julie would be, can we look around? I mean, is this a current vendor? I mean, they just got used to us renewing every year and throwing it out to a few. Well, much like when I get house insurance, I search that around and reduce my rates. So, you know, I do agree with Chairman Gaspar. This number has gone up from just under 160,000 4 years ago to you know, $207,000. So it's
yeah, I agree. So I know I want to say around 2018 we went on with Maya for our that they're the vendor that we use for all those insurances right now. I think we had a private insurance company that might have been an in-town insurance company before, so going to Maya saved us money. I can definitely, I mean, that it would be something we'd go out to bid for to see if we could get better quotes across the board. But I mean, absolutely, we can certainly do that. It's been 4 years, so.
Maybe we should talk to Flo.
All right.
All right. That was a joke. That was a joke.
We have some concerns with the insurance, Ms. Heba. Can we just take a look at that and see where those increases are coming within all the liability policies that we carry? Because I know there's multiple liability policies, whether it be for vehicles, town trucks, things of that nature.
Yeah.
Liability, you know what I mean? Things of that nature. So just get a breakout for us with Ms. Fogg and kind of give us a breakdown in each category, where it's coming from, and we can identify where those increases are coming from, and maybe we can do something about it.
Absolutely.
All right.
Thank you.
And then the almighty pensions, yippee yay. So again, $1.73 million in pensions. Bristol County retirement gone up, God, $120,000 1 year. Bristol County retirement up $120,000, again, significant increase. Julie, what's happening with pensions and why the massive increase of $120,000 roughly?
Well, I mean, we all know, I'm just trying to pull my info here, because I know they actually, we're covering our current actual costs for retirement, but we also have a back payment to make. Let me see if I can get my documents. I know that in the past, I want to say like last year or the year before, we they kind of condensed that unfunded liability payment. Say it went out, 10 years, and then they crunched it and said, no, you actually have to pay it back in like 7 years. But now this time, when they sent out this estimate, they said that the funding schedule was extended from 2028 to 2034. So they actually extended it this time instead of like decreasing the payment schedule. And that would give us a lower payment. So this payment that you're looking at here is, extending our unfunded liability out another 5 years. And it still went up about $120,000. So, I mean,
That ain't normal. That ain't how it usually works in finance, is it?
well, that kind of goes to show you what it would have been if they had it.
You gave me a longer duration of time to pay it, but yet my payment escalates by $100,000, $120,000.
Yeah, well, what is that?
Yeah, that kind of goes to show you how much the payment would have been if they hadn't done that. They do out schedules, so you can kind of see how much the increase will be every year. And yeah, so it would have been a lot higher for us. And I think they realized that with the economy right now, it would have been really hard to put that kind of an increase on people. So they put it out another 5 years. So this is the amount that we are assessed. It's actually, the actual assessment is about $27,000 higher, but we pay at the beginning of the year, and they give a significant discount if you do that. So we like to, pay that first month in the fiscal year and get the discount. It's worth it to us. So.
Okay. That hurts. I mean, between pensions and healthcare costs, just healthcare costs, you're talking 3 million, just over $3 million carried cost for employees.
And I do not expect it to go down next year either. So
no, that's a good observation. Just keeps escalating higher and higher and higher, and it's a lot of money. All right, so we're all done with budgets. We're holding the conservation for another meeting. Rick Miller, we're all set with on the appointments, COVID updates, reopening lobby hours. We determined that. Resume in-person meetings. We did not talk about that. Mr. DeRoche, I think Mr. Rona, if he's chiming in, I think that it's, we can get back to our in-person meetings because we're such a small board. We're only a 3-member board. We can keep our social distancing. We did it before in the past when we reopened. I'd like to go back to that, at least for the sake of smaller boards, 3 members or less. And if you have 5 members and you can get yourself in a room where you can properly socially distance, and we can get cameras in the room, I don't have a problem with that as well. But I mean, things like planning board, I'll use planning board. They got 5 members on the planning board. That office is not very big. They discuss plans. I think it would be difficult for planning to do it in their office, but if they could find an alternate location that could accommodate that social distance. I know CDC has now come out with some different guidance versus on social distancing, 3 feet versus 6 feet. So, if the rules are changing all the time, depending on the science, I guess, and differences of opinions amongst these people, but I'm surely inclined to our next scheduled meeting, get back to in-person meetings from any board or committee that's made up of 3 or less anyway. I'll say we can do that relatively simple. I guess Ms. Hebert, as a town administrator, could have some dialogue with committees that are 5 members or more. That may be difficult, especially like finance committees, 9 members if they're a full, that's difficult in this room that they would normally meeting. It's extremely, you can't socially distance 9 people around the area, so that's pretty tough for them, unfortunately. But Ms. DeRoche, you have any comments on that?
As far as the Board of Selectmen is concerned, I'm okay with meeting back in the meeting room. I believe we have some new guidelines, Board of Health, told Julie about how many people we can have in the room, if we need to put guests either up in the lobby upstairs and bring them down individually if there's a large group. But short of that, I'm okay with going back to in-person meetings at the Selectmen's meeting room. The other departments, they could work it out however they deem fit, but I'm okay with us going. So
yeah, I would just want Miss Hebert to pass that communication on, that, if you got a 5-member and you don't have guests and things of that nature going on, it'd be fine as long as you can provide social distancing. You can do in-person meetings, but 3 members are very easy to do that with. Miss Hebert could sit over at the table that we usually accommodate her, have the podium up there for our guests, and like we did before, Selectman DeRoche, we were always very careful and mindful of public safety and people's health, and we just brought them in as they come in. We'd let them know you can come in when the next person leaves, and we keep that same thing going. We're not dropping our guard by any means. We're just trying to conduct business in a little bit more efficient manner. It's a lot easier when we're around each other and I got something to show you and I can pass it along. I can't do that through the screen, right? See me pass you a piece of paper?
yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
I got it. Okay,
So Julie, you just have to communicate with other boards and committees that, if they're a sizable committee, perhaps they have to stay with the Zoom format for a bit longer. Until the threshold gets a little bit wider for more people and things of the like. So
Great. I'll let them know, and I'll just reiterate here that the guidelines are still effective on Monday, the 22nd. 10 people per 1,000 square feet is the max capacity, and I believe it's no more than 100 people indoors in one room. You still have to wear masks, and you still have to be socially distanced 6 feet or more. So I will certainly reiterate that. And as you said, if there's a room that could accommodate the people, then great, you can have it in person. But we cannot turn the public away from attending a meeting too. So the boards definitely need to be sure of how many people they can fit.
yeah, that's fine. We never have that big of an audience unless there's something that's disruptive to the community and they want to get in here and yell and scream. I would encourage them to come and yell and scream.
Yeah.
If we're doing that much to aggravate them, I want to hear about it, right? That's our job. So, and I'll let them come one by one and yell at us too. But we're all set, so we'll do that. We're open meetings. Slocum Street signage. I've gone through some of this stuff. I know Kathy Silva's here. She's on the email trail here. I know that we got a while ago, we had residents, I think it was a few years back with Chief Mike Alves on the police department. It was 2 or 3 years ago, I think 2 years ago. We had problems with some traffic congestion in this area and people were zipping up and down the side streets over here, taking shortcuts. People familiar with the town of Acushnet, whether it be residents or not, just understanding where the side roads lead. And then we had people that didn't want to wait in line, so they were zipping up and down the side roads. We got some complaints from residents about speeding up the side roads, unsafe conditions. So we put an article, I think, Ms. Hebert, it was $7,500 or 10 grand?
7,500.
$7,500, and we never expended that money, and I don't believe we did any of the sign ordering, did we?
No, we haven't.
The chief was kind of going out. We were in the process of hiring the new chief, and that just kind of crossed paths. And now we're looking to do some of these speed limit signs on these side streets, as well as, I think, a small, we had a problem with our flashing sign. I think there's a problem with the flashing signs, Ms. Hebert, for the DPW or somewhere. There's something about flashing signs that we wanted to tag out on Slocum Street, because we also have people speeding up and down Slocum Street. And we've asked Chief Richmond, he usually has an officer, hanging out on the road over there trying to capture these things. But unfortunately, you're driving up the street or over the bridge and you see the cruiser, who's going to speed, right? So we're going to do some flashing things that can tag them by camera. The flashing signs have cameras in them, and we'll get you that way, I guess, right?
Yep.
So do we need an approval for anything, Julie, or just because we got the article from a couple of years ago for $7,500? It looks like we got that cost covered by Miss Silver and Miss Leonard and the chief, yourself. There's a big email chain that goes across this whole thing. So are we all right?
Yeah, we should be good. I just wanted to make sure everyone was aware, because it had been some time that the article was passed, that we were doing this, and the DPW has been really great to offer to help out with the signs. They do so much with the vendor to get those purchased. So just wanted to mention it to you all and make sure everyone was okay with those signs being purchased, and the DPW will help with the labor and getting those installed.
And we got this approved on town meeting as well, right? There's some law or something we have to pass at town meeting for speed limits.
Yep, so it's essentially allowing you to put a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit on roads that haven't already been designated by Mass DOT.
Okie dokie. All right, and now we have Selectman Mona's back. The CMAS trash bids. Ms. Silva from DPW, our office manager over there. Ms. Silva, welcome.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Good. You want to?
I think if it's all right with you, I'm going to discuss.
You want to kill the board with all the good news?
I do. I'm going to talk about CMAS first, and then the trash hauling bids that came in Friday.
Okay.
On CMAS contract, Ms. Hebert sent it over to the lawyers. I assume that looked okay. What we do not have a lot of options with getting rid of our waste. It's CMAS in Republic actually is one of the places that you can take trash to, but I talked to them and they cannot beat the price that we were given of $90 a ton starting July 1st, 2021. It would then increase 4% every year for 5 years if we sign this contract. The only problem in the bad news is it's a 36% increase from what we're paying right now, because we're paying right now is $66.22 right now is what we're paying this year. And it will switch over to $90 a ton on July 1st.
Mm-hmm. So is you said something about Republic. Is that the one that's out in Bourne?
Republic?
Yeah, there's somebody, I was talking to somebody from another municipality and they mentioned something about Bourne. Have you spoken to Bourne on taking your garbage instead of going to CMAS with it? And I said, I don't think there's availability in Bourne, but do you know anything about?
No, there's nothing that I've heard of. What I found out is most people obviously use CMAS. And what I did do is I found out that Hingham, Chatham, Truro, Milton, and Lynn are all 5 towns that their CMAS contracts expire on June 30th of this year. All 5 of them have signed a new contract with CMAS at $90 a ton. So everybody's paying the same price now. And Republic is actually located in Fall River, Kevin. So okay. I don't know about Bourne.
Yeah, no, there's a place in Bourne. I guess, I don't know if it's a dump or whatever they do. They rail it out, ship it out, whatever it is.
I think that's Republic, because I talked to Chris at Republic, and that's what they do. They put it on a train and send it out, and probably from Bourne. But he said he can't meet the price of 90. It would be higher.
Mr. Chair, question?
Mr. DeRoche?
Kathy, good afternoon.
Hello.
Hi. So what's that total? How many tons a year are we burning at CMAS?
So our trash is 36. It's been going up 200 each year. So I'm going to guess 3,800 this year. And then I'm expecting another 200 increase just because that's what we've been doing for the past 4 years. So what that means to your budget, David, is you're going to go to 345,000 next year. It was 250,000 this year, 38% increase in total. 36% of it is due to your rate going up, and then 2% is due to your tonnage going up.
Okay. So you said the final number was 3.25?
345,
345 for this year,
yes.
and then up.
We got DPW coming in for their own powwow on all the budgets that are under them, Dave. And it's just, you said 4%. I did the math. I come out like 2.5, 3.
I think, Kevin, are you looking at the trash hauling ones? The trash hauling ones are coming up at 2.5%. The CMAS is coming up 4%.
Right.
Yeah, I'm just going based off the waste. Oh, this is trash bid, waste management.
Right.
Yeah, I'm only talking about CMAS right now. The
Oh,
CMAS
yeah. I got down here on the bottom note, so I didn't have to go to a CMAS goes up 4% every year, correct?
Yes.
I apologize. We're talking CMAS. I'm just looking at the bids on, you can get to that great news too, if you'd like.
Well,
Actually, no,
we
do you have any other questions on CMAS?
We knew this was coming. I'm sorry.
Mr. DeRoche, you got anything else?
Yeah, well, we knew this was coming. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, the numbers, the projections, the articles. This is eventually going to be an issue for the town if it isn't already. You know, other towns put make you pay as you go, pay as you throw. I'm not saying that's a direction I'm looking at right now, but this price is only going to escalate into the future. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Yeah. Selectman Warner.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, this definitely is one that we need to track closely. But I think, one of there's a handful of services that I think our residents demand for the bang for their buck, right? And so with our $30+ million, I think it's our job to figure out where the priorities lie. And, I know this one is a priority for me, and I'm sure the board. It would be disappointing to have to go to some type of fee-based trash removal, because I just think that's something that's what people are paying their taxes for. So we got to figure out how to make that work regardless of the price, if we can.
I couldn't agree more.
I agree.
I mean, I would never, and I've been talking about it for quite some time when that discussion was brought back up a while ago. And I said, oh, over my dead body, I mean, people look at their taxes now and say, what do I get? Garbage picked up every week. And I'm like, yeah. So I think if, it's political suicide to try to dump a garbage fee on
No,
top.
I don't disagree with both of you gentlemen. I don't, but it's a number we're going to be facing.
I mean,
when this contract runs out.
You can see, I mean, it begs the question that I think Mr. Wona is saying. I think, Mr. Wona, I don't want to put words in your mouth, is maybe we really need to start exploring an alternative way of getting rid of our trash. Maybe we just don't stick with the business as usual with CMAS, and let's explore other avenues if there are other avenues, right? I mean, our recycling's gone up from 30 something bucks a ton to $100 something a ton. Now we got garbage going from 62 bucks a ton to $90 a ton. I mean, must be nice. I mean, they obviously, the business model obviously understands one thing, right? What else you going to do? So they have the pricing power, and that's what they're utilizing. They're utilizing their pricing power, saying, where else are you going to go? Well,
right.
I do know there are other communities, Ms. Silver just mentioned it, that train things out of here, and we'll have to see what that's all about and start exploring that avenue. But maybe we should be, while we're in this 5-year contract, maybe that's something the board needs to explore a little more heavily in figuring that out.
Or, I mean, look, we're every year, and it's the right thing to do. We try to set money aside for OPEB. I think we need to start, putting money aside every year for a trash, hauling, and start building up a little bit of an escrow account for that to try and handle that and mitigate it.
And even really going out there are things, composting will eliminate all our food waste, and or not eliminate it, but we can save on tonnage there. But that's an outside the box kind of thought.
Yeah, if anybody lives in a residential zone where you got 10,000 square foot lots, I don't want to smell your food composted in your backyard. So it's not bad if you're where you live, way out, on the north side, and you got open land and space where you don't have neighbors right in your backyard. But anywho, Miss Silva, you want to go to the trash bid that we put out to bid? You did such a great job putting the package together and getting it out to bid. Thank you very much. You want to discuss?
Thank you. Yeah.
Trash bid?
Yep, if you got, just to go back to CMAS, if all three of you are happy with that information, Mrs. Hebert has the contract from CMAS already that needs to be signed by one of you, so we can send that back to them to get that one approved for the next 5 years.
Have you, Ms. Silva, when you looked at that contract, I reviewed the contract. There's a lot of different language in there about contaminations and things of that nature. Is that similar to what we've done in the last prior contract? Nothing's really changed dramatically on that?
Nothing's changed at all, and I've read all the contracts of the other towns. It's all exactly the same. So I feel comfortable with it. I know, Julie, if you're on, yeah, you're on. You sent it to the lawyers. They had no issues.
They had a couple like small changes, so I'll make sure that those are incorporated in, but it's nothing major, just small things here and there.
Okay, great, thank you.
And Ms. Silva, just the board's not happy with CMAS.
I know. Sorry.
That's all right. You did a great job.
All right, the one thing I am happy about is I think you all received the trash bid comparison. These are the trash haulers. We actually had 4 companies that bid on this. It was ABC, Easy Disposal, Republic, and Waste Management. I'm very happy to say Waste Management won the bid financially. We've had a great experience with them in this office, working with them. So I'm so happy that hopefully you will all vote to continue working with them. Like I said, they came in at the lowest bid for all 5 years. So I have no issues with that. I wanted to keep them. We have a great working relationship with their management team, with their customer service team. And we don't get, knock on wood, a lot of complaints other than the weeks that our drivers go on vacation and we have someone fill in, obviously they miss a few. So I'm happy. So if you look at the bids, it's basically, this year, it's almost going to be even because we had finished paying for our trash barrels. We now own them all. And we're dealing with that internally with fixing them and recycling through them so that we shouldn't have a big bill for new trash barrels coming up anytime soon. And if we do, it's going to be, we're working with IPL, which is a separate vendor to build us our barrels now. It's a cheaper way to go. So Waste Management will only be $594,000 next year. It was $590,000 this year. So the increase is minimal. But then every year after, it will be a 2.5% increase for the next 5 years.
So let's be clear, the amount, we baked in a certain amount of dollars to pay for all those barrels several years back. I think it was 2015 or 16. We did that last contract, right?
Correct.
And we baked in a pretty significant amount of money into that trash recycling hauling line item. Is that the one we baked in a percentage of money? I only go back to fiscal year 18 in my budgets right now. I'd have to look, but to discover exactly what that increase was, that's absorbing that 30% increase in the year one. And it's basically flatlined the heavy pickup, not the heavy pickup, the hauling, trash recycling hauling line item.
Right, that's the line it was in. That's right. That's why.
What was the amount we baked into the budget to cover that cost for the barrels over the 5 years?
It was $200,000 over 5 years.
So $40,000?
Yes.
And that's taken up that's absorbing this increase in the contract per tonnage, right?
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, any questions, comments, concerns from Ms. Silva while she's on discussing this? I mean, it is the lowest bid by, I don't know, $30,000, and we've had pretty good luck with Waste Management thus far. To take over from Howland a couple of years ago, right? A year and a half ago. So any comments, concerns, questions?
You need a motion to approve?
I do.
We do.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Roll call vote, Mr. Warner,
Yes.
Mr. DeRoche,
Yes.
and I'm a yes.
Thank you. I'll work with them and we'll get a contract.
So-
I'll submit it to Mrs. Hebert to have the lawyers review that one as well. And
So So here's the deal, right? So we're saving $30 over the course of the contract, or $30 per year. I mean, 30,000.
It's,
Okay.
well, basically what we did, I think, Kathy, if you wanna, we had $200,000 over the last 5-year contract to buy all those plastic containers for the arm thing that reaches out to Chuck, Dave.
Yeah.
And that's come off contract now. We're all done paying for all of that. That $40,000 isn't gonna come out of the hauling because we're exorbitant for the increase in the $30 a ton that we're getting popped by them now.
Okay, understood. I just heard $30,000 savings. I just want to know if that was annual or over the course of the,
That's 5 years, Mr. Warner.
every 5 years? I mean, every year?
No, over the course of the
Oh,
contract.
okay, got it. All right. Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Hey, Kathy,
Yes.
so we need to add $4,000 to that line item in the CMAS budget, the trash recycling hauling, if that's what it's coming up as, right? The first year one says 594, we got 590 plugged in there.
Yes, I'm going to increase. What I'm going to do is haven't been scheduled yet to talk to you, talk to the select board about our budgets. So I am probably going to increase our hauling line by the 4,000 definitely. And then the equipment rental, Mr. Menard and myself are reviewing. We might decrease that a little bit before we discuss it with you. So I will submit another budget by the end of day today to Melissa and Julie.
And I think that the board, when we get you guys in to talk for all the budgets that you have, and you have a few budgets for us to discuss with you, Ms. Silva, I think that the board's going to have an appetite. I won't speak for the board, but they can comment right now because I know I have an appetite for the heavy pickup day.
Okay.
And I think that we're still paying the $66 a ton until June 30th of this year, correct?
We are.
So it would be very smart on the board's behalf to schedule that heavy pickup now before that price escalates and costs us a lot more money, correct?
If you're going to do it, I would suggest that. Yes.
Okay, very good.
Thank
Can
you.
you check with CMAS? I know that was a problem in the past with CMAS where they couldn't do it because they were idled down or doing something to the plant. Can you check with them and see what's up with their schedule and see if we can get that day scheduled?
Yes, I will. I'll see what they have available in the next few months.
Yeah, we're gonna need a little bit of time to notify the public, so mid-April on would be great.
Mid-April, okay.
Yeah, whatever we can do, but we want to at least give 2 weeks notice to our residents, right?
Yes, I agree. Okay, let me see if I can get a date and I'll get back to you as soon as possible.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you.
Information only. Town council, which we haven't voted a contract with him yet, but if we were gonna, they're saying that legal services are going up by $10 per hour. Paralegals at 1.5 times that amount. Gentlemen, we'll have that on for the town council's budget when we discuss that, what we're gonna do. Maybe we'll have an executive session to discuss that. We do have an executive session scheduled. Anything else, gentlemen? Town administrators report, I apologize.
Nope. Nothing for me.
Well said, thank you.
Nothing, gentlemen. I'll just say that I've been missing out a few times because the COVID's got us up in a twist. I believe tomorrow is St. Patty's Day. Is that correct?
Mhm.
So happy St. Patty Day for all you folks that celebrate St. Patrick's Day. Be safe. Have one for me. And we're going to go into executive session. Selectman Wonar and Selectman DeRoche, you both gentlemen have time to do executive session. I hope to only be there 10 minutes.
Yep.
All right. With no further business, we got a gentleman, there is a joint meeting. I told Miss Hebert, I'm not so sure I can make the Wednesday night. I might not be in town. For that matter, in state. So March 24th, Wednesday night, 7 p.m., joint session with school committee and FinCom. That's the next scheduled selectmen's meeting. I might not be able to make that meeting, but neither here or there. That's what it's scheduled for. in executive session. Is there a motion to go into executive session on the general law 30A subsection 21A3 to conduct strategy and preparation for negotiations with union personnel or to conduct contract negotiations with union personnel, police, fire, and ASME, clerical, DPW, no fire, if an open meeting will have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position as a public body and the chair so declares. Roll call vote. Selectman Wonow,
Yes.
Selectman DeRoche.
Yes.
We are now in executive session. We will not reconvene to open session.